I'm Andrew Gibbons. I know that. You know that. Now everybody else knows that. And you're Rebecca Norton. Save you telling us about yourself. I can if you wish. And I'm going to stop talking in a minute, which is every these great moment in these what we call podcasts, because you've had some interesting times. We were talking about this, weren't we, Rebecca, before we got started, and we ditched what we were going to talk about because I think what you've been doing, about which I don't know very much, interesting. So I haven't got anything more to say on this at this point. Hey, great moment for everybody. So over to you. What you've been up to, and what do you want to tell the big world about it?
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, I have been doing something called a manifesting challenge with Peter Sage this week. So it's a live 5 day challenge thing. So the last day is actually today. And I know a lot of people will see this as a little bit woo-woo out there, whatever you want to call it. But actually, I really love this sort of stuff. And I've been following Peter for a few years.
Why would
And
they say it's a bit wee woo and out there? I mean, I've got to stop you on that because I sometimes use the word dodgy. Well, people think it's a bit dodgy.
possibly, depending on where they're coming from. I think you need to be at a certain level and you need to be open-minded to understand this, I
I
think.
know you're really narrowing down the wide world for people
I
open-minded.
I am
Minded to what? I mean, I don't take you away from where you want to go, but I'm just getting context here. What sort of open-mindedness do you need to get something out of manifesting challenge?
open-minded to the fact that there's more going on in the world than we see.
Well, that is big stuff. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's a big step.
Yeah. So
We get
yeah,
we
so
get
let's
set,
let's
don't
get
we?
in deep straight away, shall we?
Yeah, because we get set in. Where I am is where I am, and that suits me, and it's okay. And then challenge. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. So some people will probably link this to like law of attraction stuff, but it's more active than that, is what Peter Sage would say. There's a lot around intention and where we direct our focus, where we direct our energy. And manifesting is, um, I suppose, it's influencing our experience in life. And that's very vague and very generic.
I
So,
know. I get that. Uh, so I guess the word intention is one we were talking about before, and I use that a lot myself these days. I found myself using it much more than I ever did, because intentional behavior implies deliberate, focused, rather than random, accidental behavior. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. That's not a new experience for me, because I'm pretty unsophisticated, as I keep being told. But I mean, intentional behavior is powerful, and this isn't me talking about this; it's you talking about this. So I only challenged you on why is it we were and whatever else you said. So that's
yeah,
helpful.
the intentional bit, because we can often find ourselves sort of, or many people still do, I suppose, drifting through life, wondering how they got to this point, wondering why everything's happening to them, why is nothing going right? And that's probably because they haven't been intentional about what they want, and this was triggered because of a comment you made about, do we influence if we're feeling good, does that make a difference to how we sort of experience the world? I know you didn't phrase it quite like that, but that was
Demeanor we
true.
talked about recently. I suppose
That's
that
yeah,
whole feeling, it's just rejection of demeanor and behavior, but how you feel about yourself. Yeah.
yeah. And if we project a positive demeanor, then we experience the world in a different way to somebody who's grumpy and negative all the time. And that is fact. If you have ever been at a party or a meeting and somebody walks in who's very negative or angry or whatever, it does literally change the atmosphere of the room.
I
They
can't get
haven't.
beyond Donald Trump. Sorry, but I get in contention. But to me, the two contrasting demeanors currently in the European, that'd be a thought, of the American election. Got one happy, smiling person who's clearly that's who she is and who she's being told to project, demeanor.
Yeah,
And then you got Mr. Grumpy, abusive, insulting. I mean, you can't get a starker contrast. So I just can't get beyond him. So demeanor, yeah, I get all that. I mean, it's hard to feel positive if you project no positivity.
correct. And that's exactly it. So unless you project in that, you're not. You can. So frequency beats chemistry.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
gonna write that down. Don't know what it
Yeah.
means, but I'll write it down.
that we can. And again, this is really good for me to help me process what I've been learning
Yeah,
this
I
week.
understand that. It does help.
Yeah. So if we practice being, looking for the good things that's going on in our lives, that
They are,
literally
and they are. We might not see them immediately,
yeah.
but they are. Yeah.
Well, we have a mixture of experience. Nothing is ever going to be all good, but nothing is ever all bad either. It's how we choose to focus on them. If we only focus on the negative stuff, then we will feel negative. That changes our chemistry. If we focus on the positive stuff, that changes our chemistry and we feel better. So it does.
And that is actually a metabolic thing, is it? It's
Yeah.
something that is, yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah, so there is, I mean, there is science behind this. This is why I'm saying it's not woo-woo. I know it sounds like that, but it isn't. So this is the thing, is actually we do influence our own reality.
Oh, I'm going to write that down too. This is really, we do influence our own. Are you reiterating Peter Sage here now? Are these your own thoughts?
There is a bit of both, I think. I think it helps me to form my own ideas, and he's very much in that way.
Mm,
He will always say he's holding up a mirror rather than telling us what to
yeah.
do, because he doesn't do that at all. He gives us
Okay.
information, but it's up to us how we take that and use it in our own lives.
Okay.
That's the key to this, is we
I,
can take as much stuff on as we want, but unless we implement it, it's not going to change.
okay. Again, I'm leading you away because there's content and stuff you want to talk about. We just have been. I thought let's talk about it for real. But I mean, before you do, I just want to pick up one thing. You mentioned it. There is a real value in what we're doing now. Just explicitly exploring it interactively. This is what we keep talking about, learning conversations. When we keep these thoughts to ourselves, they bounce around, but they're constricted here. When we start saying them out loud, oh, I didn't know I thought that. And oh, this is interesting because you go deeper when you're asked things by someone else who's outside your own head, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it helps you to synthesize what you've already taken on board, and it helps you to sort of like, oh, I see how that links to that, or I wonder if, and it
Mm,
gets you thinking deeper. And this is why I love this stuff. I just find it
mm,
absolutely fascinating.
mm.
Um, but like I said, you've got to be in the right place to be able to take this on board. If your circumstances are pretty dire, you're not going to be able to, who gives a monkeys whether how I feel about this and whether this is happening or not happening or whatever. I
You
get
can't
that.
get beyond that
Yeah,
blockage. Yeah.
yeah. But there are little things that you can do by starting, and that's the most simple one, starting to notice what is going right for you. But also, I guess this is the other thing, and what Peter talks about is the levels of consciousness, is when we experience something that perhaps hasn't gone to plan, and again, I do practice this now myself and have done for a number of years, is rather than asking, why is this happening to me? If
Mm.
we can flip that round and say, why is this happening for me? Then we get a completely different set of answers. Why is this happening to me? Because I'm rubbish, because I'm not worthy, because I don't deserve this. Why is this happening for me? Oh, something
So you're
else
saying it's a kind of gift. This experience I'm having is an opportunity, not purely. It's easy to talk trite like this. You'll swat another. Oh yeah, right. Opportunities, threats, and then move on. No, pull it
Yeah,
apart and see how difficult it is. So what you seem to be saying to me is get beyond the victim state of oh no, here we go again, into the person who's strong enough, if you can get there, to say I can use this.
yes, exactly. And it results in a very different mindset and a different level of energy. If you're stuck in victim mentality, then you don't have the energy often to do something about it. Because we can feel stuck, we can feel demoralized, we can feel powerless. But if we can flip that round and say, why is this happening for me? Then it galvanizes us in a different way.
I mean, I'm making more notes than I usually do, and I often do make notes in our conversations. There's a lot here already that I'll reflect on and write up afterwards. You know how I do things. Otherwise, I forget them because I'm stupid. But I can also see this as a coaching tool.
Mm.
It's getting perilously close to therapy for me, and it's something I always stay clear because I'm not a therapist, but I feel just about comfortable with skimming over the surface of the behavioral stuff. But I wouldn't ever want to go more deeply into that because that's where my limits of competence lie. Uh, yeah, it's powerful. I can see that. Okay, well, go where you need to. I'm not telling you where to go because you'll give me a load of new stuff here.
Yeah, and I mean that the key is there's these levels of consciousness that he talks about are, and I mentioned this to you briefly, is to me,
Yeah,
by me,
yeah.
through me, and as me. Now, as me is, as Pete Sage would say, is above his pay grade. It's not something that mere earthly people will generally achieve. You know, that's more like your Gandhi and your people like that who have up there, you know, sort of the Nelson Mandela type people.
Yeah, and you can, don't let me hijack this. Something that irritates me a lot on LinkedIn. You get shown Nelson Mandela and Gandhi. You say, look what they did. Either of them. I'm never going to be anything like them. Don't compare me with them. They're not my benchmarks. But
No.
sometimes we need an over aspiration, or you'll never get to this point. Otherwise, we think we've arrived somewhere.
Yeah, very much so. So that is very much your really high level stuff. But the to me, by me, and through me is very relevant, I think. So, and again, like I said, you know, the to me is around, we're often feeling like we're stuck there. We're feeling that sort of, why is this happening to me? That victim mentality. The
Mhm.
by me is what it would call the achiever mode. So I'm going to do this
All right.
by my
But when you first
determination.
said by me, I thought it went by me. But you're saying I've done it. It's done by me.
It's done by me. Yeah. So this is
Ah,
happening because of me.
yeah,
It's through my stuff. This is done by me. So
got
it's
it.
the determination. We often see that, and that can be really helpful. That can give us the energy to move beyond things and get things done. But it's a very high achiever mode.
Well, the Paralympics are going on there. If you want some examples of by me, there are a load of people without what we use to get around doing things we'll never do. So yeah, what an example.
Exactly, exactly. And then the through me is more about going with the flow. And there's a level of acceptance, not resignation, but acceptance that life is taking me on a path. Now I can steer that, but I'm not going to fight against the current with it.
Can't.
So
You just can't. The current's stronger and deeper. You've got to judge what you can and can't. If you waste energy, I watch squirrels a lot in my front garden. You always get worried when I talk about squirrels. It usually takes 8 minutes, but I try not to. And I watch squirrels and I think, now I'm dangling things from a string. You can't get there. You can't hang off that tree, and you know it. So they turn up, have a good look, and says, "No, it's still there," and they go off. I'll say, "Fair play, squirrels. You don't waste energy. You know when you're beat. Go to Tony and get his."
but how many people do fight against the current? How many people make life hard for themselves? You know, we can't, we have to recognize what we can and can't control. We
I'm
take
gonna have to run some
responsibility.
webinars called "Learning from Squirrels" because I watch them a lot, and you're right. Um, they're persistent when they feel they can achieve something. Is giving up. They just say, "Not with the energy." They love a good look and said, "No, nothing new here." Nothing. Thought,
Yeah.
fair play, squirrels. You've got this rumbled.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's knowing where to direct that energy is the key in
Okay.
this. And that's where that's a really powerful place to live, and that's the helpful place to live in that level if we can. And it's not necessarily easy to get there. I'm not saying that these things are easy, but I think it's certainly aspirational, and I'm learning to live in that space. I don't get it right all the time, but
It's a
I'm
heck of
learning
a
in that
that's
space.
a heck of a it's not a skill, competency if you like to develop. The and I've been thinking about that quite a bit. Persistence is great, but persistence can be wasted if doesn't get you ultimately to where you needed to go. All that effort you put into persisting has actually been a waste of effort. And making that judgment, like squirrels do, I'm not going back there, but here's what squirrels are good. Making that judgment of yes, it is worth the effort. Yes, it's going to be tough. It might take longer than I want. There's going to be problems I can't even see and making a different judgment of that's not going to work. I'm not even going to go there because I'm making the judgment that although I can see value, what it's going to cost me, and the low likelihood of achieving what I want anyway, like a squirrel. And this is where a coach comes in handy because a coach might ask you the questions that help you determine those things for yourself. Ooh,
Yeah,
ah,
definitely, and it is. I think that definitely this sort of it can be useful in coaching as well. I do tap into this sort of stuff when with my coaching clients. It's something that we
see that?
will discuss.
I
Definitely,
see
yeah.
that. Anything but grow. Don't give us more grow LinkedIn visuals. Get beyond Grow. Talk about this. This is much more powerful than Grow. Grow is just a template. You just
Yeah.
inflict on people. This is about getting close to the client. Because you can inflict a Grow template and say, I always do Grow. So let's talk about this, then talk about that. No, that's not what the client needs. The client needs to know about to me, by me, through me, as me. They've never heard of that. No, you know about Grow because everything you ever use. So I think this is a good developmental tool for coaches.
Yeah, definitely. And I love it. There's so much that I take away from this. Every time I listen to him, there's always something different to take.
You're creating contacts within the network as well. Do you do a bit of that between yourselves? I don't know how that works.
No, I do follow on his challenge, and I've done one of his programs before as well.
Okay.
Um, so he's done a lot of stuff
Right,
with him.
I've distracted you with squirrels and all sorts of nonsense here because that's what I do. But this is really good stuff. I like this a lot. To me, by me, through me. You've mentioned that ASME is a bit aspirational. Is there anything else you want to? Can you get closer to ASME, or is ASME always untouchable?
I think you can certainly get closer to it. You know, but it probably is aspirational for most people. You know,
Okay.
but it's definitely something that we can work towards. So aspirational is a much more that unconditional love type thing that people would talk about. So
Yeah.
it that does feel a little bit higher, you
The
know.
self-actualization
Yeah,
Maslowy thing, and I like the Dreyfus and Dreyfus model, which talks about expertise not being an expert. As soon as you're an expert, you stop. I'm an expert. That's it. Ended. I'm an expert in shorthand. I'm an expert in Betamax recorders. I'm an expert in using a Xerox machine for copying. Well, sorry, mate. The world's moved on. You're no longer an expert because life changes. So it's always aspirational. So I quite like the idea, sorry, of not having an endpoint.
yeah, and not, and he talks a lot about don't you're not aiming for the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing because we're always going to be learning. It's always about the journey to get there.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
the destination is it's sort of irrelevant in some respects. It's
Mm.
not completely, but that's not what our aim should be. It's how do we experience life along the way to
But
get
you're
there.
doing this intentionally,
Hmm.
um, with the intention to put this to practical use and to apply this, and it sounds like that's happening already.
Yeah, yeah, definitely is, and it's certainly influenced my thinking over the last few years while I've been doing this. And it helps me approach things differently. Is another thing that he talks about is this or something better. You know, is actually accepting that if things aren't going to plan, then it's probably because something else different or better is going to come along. You know, that helps me to deal with some of the challenges and things. You know, and just accepting that this is fine. This is all part of learning. Whatever I'm experiencing, you know, I'm not going to get sunk into depression or anything with this. I'm actually going to use this as an opportunity to learn from and move forwards.
I saw something recently that impression is an anagram of I press on. I think that's right. Uh, but I'm not going to distract you into that area as well. Okay, what am I thinking about this? I'm thinking, yeah, it doesn't sound dodgy. It doesn't sound cultish, which you sometimes get a bit worried about with these sorts of things, particularly American things, but it's a terrible thing to say, a stereotype. That's not true at all. A lot of good stuff comes out of America. It's just that they're better at this sort of stuff. And what I like is the practicality, and it's not being over scientific. It's not creating a whole new paradigm, which is a word I use and don't understand. It's practical.
It is. If we apply it that way, it's very practical. And something else that you would really like, I think, is it's about don't confuse opinion for advice.
Here
Um,
we go.
I
Really.
thought you'd really like this one.
All
So,
right, explain that. Explain that because I probably don't understand what it means.
well, advice is given from first-hand experience. Unless somebody's experienced it from themselves, it's
Mm.
quite difficult to give advice, I think. And I can see some people would disagree with that, but I can see how actually I believe that, you know, if and there's a book apparently called The Richest Man in Babylon, and he says if you want to learn about jewels, go and speak to a jeweler, you know. And it's the same with other things. Don't speak to some, you know, you need to
Well,
choose carefully
if you
who
want
you
to learn
solicit.
about duels, go and talk to a dueler. But there's only half as many around as there used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, be a little bit discerning about who you ask for
That's about
advice.
humility, isn't it? That's about. We also talked a bit about that before we caught up. And I come across a lot of people, too many people. I was hinting at earlier, um, who think they're being helpful by giving their life story, and their life story is different to everyone else's life story. And imprinting your own life story on others and thinking you're being helpful is appalling. Um, in my view.
I think you have to be careful about choosing anecdote that can be helpful to other people, not just telling
Yeah.
people your life story.
And this is coming from don't confuse opinion with advice. See, I do write this down. Don't confuse opinion with advice. So I think this is different from I think you should. And if I think you should is based upon this has happened to me, that's wrong as well. It's all about being other focused, isn't it? It's all about, and all this stuff you're talking about is of most use when working with others,
Yeah.
when you're asking questions, not telling people things.
Yeah, definitely.
Whoa,
And get people to learn from themselves.
a lot of minutes have gone past quick here, and
I know.
we might pick up on this. We've said it before, and it might well be, but you're still doing this, or you're still reflecting on it. So I think we might come back to this. I like it a lot. Yeah, I like it this much. She says, lots of scribble.
That's good. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to do this. I think this has been really helpful for me to process some of this stuff as well.
Yeah, I do understand that bit of it because the explicit speaking about things which otherwise be thoughts accesses things more deeply and more richly than we'd otherwise do. So, I often throw this at you. So, a final thought, something as a takeaway. It sounds a bit cheesy, but if anyone stayed with us this long, what would you like their final little gem of wisdom to be?
I think the main thing is ask yourself, why is this happening for me rather than to me? Because you will get a hugely different response from yourself.
Okay. All right. Well, as ever, I'm going to stop it there because that itself lends itself to a further 50 and 20 minutes of exploration. That's been good. And I like these spontaneous, we didn't plan to do this ones because they're the right thing to do sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you.